My first one-on-one contact with Professor Ndiari was after a tutorial class.
Scholars, we are in the presence of academic royalty.
So what's your name?
Morimi.
Moremi. I'm not asking for your whole of residence, I'm asking for your name.
Orúkọ mi ni Morimi. Je peux voir que vous avez un souci avec votre voiture.
Vous parlez français?
Let's proceed.
It was she who offered sex to me.
She was infatuated by this man.
There was no infatuation.
She wanted to indulge me.
Chumbo, you like it.
Bonjour, professeur.
Become the poster girl for every woman with a grudge against the male lecturer on this campus. They all think they can swim until somebody drowns.
Citation, a movie produced by Kunle Afolayan, was released today, and these are my honest citation expressions. Some weeks back in October, when I watched Citation pre-release, these expressions were quite the same. If you've seen Citation, you'd understand the reasons for these expressions. But if you've not seen it, Citation is a movie that tells the story of the sexual harassment of a Nigerian female student in a Nigerian university by a lecturer. For me, this mirrors the reality of a lot of Nigerian females, and I'm going to be linking the dots. Let's dive into my review. So the first issue I would like to raise is the issue of familiarity. I personally feel that familiarity aids sexual assault, and actually most sexual assault and sexual harassment cases are not always perpetrated by strangers. They're always someone that are so close to you. So of course familiarity plays a role in this. And in the movie, Morimi was too familiar with our lecturer. You cannot watch Citation and not get angry. It was like an emotional roller coaster. Citation was like an emotional roller coaster for me. There were some parts I was excited, but I was so angry, especially at Morimi because she was far too unassuming. Some people would just call it outright being gullible. But she was too unassuming. As a Nigerian female, you cannot afford to be that unassuming. Lucian actually gave her a whole lot of pointers that she could have taken as a cue and distanced herself. Do you want to talk about the Senegal attempt to kiss her? Do you want to talk about the fact that in his office, he told her his best color was color red, and he was implying her underwear? Do you want to talk about the fact that he was getting too personal with her? A lecturer should not be asking you about your sex life or about your relationship. It's none of his business. But I know that in Morimi's case, the familiarity was brought about by a manipulation scheme. When their first conversation of lecturer and student relationship was when she was coming out of the faculty and he was struggling to drive his car, and he was complaining bitterly about not being able to drive a manual gear, kept calling it stick, and she offered to help. Later in the movie, we got to know that he knew how to drive a manual gear, and it was all a scheme to get Morimi's attention and to get her familiar to him. He manipulated her. There were a lot of manipulations. his age also played a role, and Moremi also had a fault in it. So that's that. In Nigeria, mostly when a case of sexual assault, sexual harassment is being raised, most people tend to put or place their friendships and personal relationships above the issue that is on ground. You know, in Nigeria, you hear someone say, this person has been my friend for 10 years. Outrightly, he cannot do it. He cannot sexually assault somebody. They don't want to know what evidence is or what is available to prove that the person is culpable or a person has done it. It's just that you outrightly, the person cannot do it. This was depicted in Citation with the Senegal professor when Moremi had to travel back to Senegal in search for Mr. Cardosa. The man saw her and he was like, Moremi, I've been following your case with Lucien, and I just want to tell you that he cannot do it. He's innocent. That happens a lot. And I'm like, you shouldn't think that, you shouldn't place your personal relationship over this person, because oftentimes you find out that the person actually did it. Just like Lucien actually did it. I'm not saying you should take side outrightly with the accuser, but you can just take care of and allow full court investigation to happen, and then that's when you now get to see what happened, and then you take a stance, which should be by the truth, of course. Another issue I like to raise of Citation and reality is the presence of cliques. I mean, there was a semblance of clique between Professor Lucien Ndiaye and the dean. You know, at the Senate hearing, when Professor Ndiaye was asked if he actually reported that Moremi tried to sexually harass him at his house, he said yes. And when they asked him who did he tell, he said the dean. If you watch the movie and you study the body composure, their eye contact, and the way the dean answered the question, and get to know that that's a lie. He most probably did not tell the dean anything, but the dean actually took side with him for whatever reason that might have been. But another thing I noticed about Nigerian men is the fact that they see the fight against sexual harassment and all sexual violences as a fight against their gender. A man, or an average Nigerian man, as at now, would side with his fellow man just because he's a man against any sexual harassment story. Not because they mean bad, but I feel they see it as, you're fighting my fellow man, so let me take side with him because he's helpless or something. I often explain to them, or the few people that I have opportunities to talk to, I often explain to them that this is not a fight against your gender. You need to understand that it is a fight against these perpetrators, and actually you should join, because it is not affecting you. Doesn't mean it cannot affect your loved ones. Doesn't mean that it can affect someone doesn't mean it can't affect someone you love. These perpetrators, they do not just harass one person and stop at it. They are always serial in their activities. They do it to different people. So if you think that it's a fight against your gender and you feel the need to cover them up, if you have a female around you that you care about, that female is in danger, because there's a very high possibility that they would try or actually harass that person sexually. So it's in your best interest, and it's in the best interest of everyone around you, that you allow the full course of investigation to happen, and don't try to cover them up or don't try to shield them off proper investigation. It's not a fight against your gender. It is a fight against perpetrators, and if every hand is on deck, things will actually get better. Let's take for example Professor Lucien. Moremiolua was the female that had the courage to report him and bring a case of it. But in the course of the movie, we found out that he has done the same thing to Data, which is even more worse because Data had a child for him and she later committed suicide. Other 6 girls contacted Ajike Foundation after Moremiolua won a case against him to attest to the fact that he has tried to harass them, or he has harassed them sexually in the past. So it is a pattern. Most perpetrators, they always have other people they've harassed in the past, or they do not just do one and stop. So it's in the best interest of everyone to let them be investigated. Another thing that I feel is worthy of note in Citation is the fact that you can see a pattern in the type of girls that Lucien harassed. I mean, there were other girls that were ready to throw themselves at him, but he was not interested in those girls. I mean, Iniedo actually went to meet him the very first day he lectured in class and asked him, "Are you married?" And he was like, "Yes, I'm married. I have a child. This. She was ready to actually date him if he wanted, but he wasn't interested in her because he had a pattern of girls. Data was reported to be a very bright female, and we can see what he did to Data. Moremiolua was the youngest and the brightest in her class, so it felt like Professor Lucien intentionally went for bright girls and then he broke them on purpose. Mr. Kadosa even said it in the movie that it's almost as if he does these things to break females because he had an absential father. But that's not an excuse, right? It's not an excuse for bad behavior. So that is a pointer to something. Most perpetrators of sexual violence always have a pattern. For some, it is vulnerable females. For some, it is females that are in problem. That they come to you acting like a savior, meanwhile they are manipulating you. For some, it is the brightest of them all they want to go for and then break them. For whatever reason they are doing that, it differs. But there's always a pattern. One of my favorite things about Citation is that it helped to debunk this narrative of females being harassed by lecturers, being academically dull. You know, when they say a lecturer harassed this girl, they tell you, you must have gone to him to ask for marks. You must have begged. You know, some people say if you're academically sound, there's no way a lecturer would actually talk to you and tell you he likes you or whatever, he wants to sexually harass you, something like that. Moremiolua was the youngest in the class and she was unarguably one of the best students in the class. So it's really not about, sexual harassment on campus, the Nigerian campus, has gone past you not being academically sound. One thing I really love in particular about Citation is its relatability. The fact that you can relate with it so much. I mean, Lucien's character is not far away from the normal Nigerian lecturer that you would see and know in any Nigerian university. There are always their types there. So it is so relatable. But then, after seeing the movie and it was the time for Uncle Kunle Afolayan to talk to us, and he spoke to us and he made us understand that Citation and everything that made up Citation took 2.5 years. 2 years, 6 months. That's the research, the writing, and then the shooting took 1.5 months. It began to make sense to me. You cannot really put in so much work in something and come out with something mediocre. It is just normal that you put in so much work and come out with something that is of top-notch quality. So thumbs up to every Citation crew, thumbs up to Cap Hub and Temi Otedola. I'm a huge fan. You know, I've seen Temi evolve from being a makeup enthusiast, a fashion blogger. She has a book club. She also recently became an ambassador for WARIF, that is being an activist for gender-based violence, you know, and now acting. And you know, the thing is, she does everything so well. This acting, I said it, if you do not know that this is a debut movie, you wouldn't know that this is her first movie. So this is a very big shout out to you. I love you and I love everything that you do. So if you want to see more content like this, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Subscription is free. Like it if you love it, share it if you want others to see it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you and bye.